for Wetaskiwin.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just going to advise you at the start of my remarks that I'll be splitting my time with the honourable member for St. Catharines, who does an excellent job with this file as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Human Resources and Skills Development. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to take this opportunity to address the motion from the member from Cape Breton-Canso regarding the temporary foreign worker program. First, let me be very clear. The original intent of this program was to help employers find temporary help in cases where there are absolute and acute labour shortages. And as a member of Parliament from Alberta, I know all too well about labour shortages. The media reports concerning the program of late are concerning, and we are investigating to ensure that the program is working to fulfil its original purpose. We have committed in the budget to fixing the program to ensure that Canadians always have the first crack at available jobs. On the subject of the budget, I'd like to speak to the current state of our economy because this has always been and continues to be, of course, this party's top priority. Canada has fared well despite the current global economic challenges. We have the strongest job creation record in the G7. Thanks to the strong leadership of our Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, Canada has seen the creation of over 900,000 net new jobs since the darkest days of the recession, most of which are full-time private sector jobs. As the economy continues to grow, the demand for workers whose skills are in demand will also increase. In some regions, the demand for certain skills has skyrocketed. The results in labour shortages in key occupations that are important to our economy and to our future prosperity. This mismatch oftentimes presents a challenge for employers, workers, and of course, government. That is why I was very pleased to read the Human Resource Committee's report on skill and labour shortages. This work has already been concluded. The report that involved the committee travelling across the country to engage directly with Canadian businesses contains some excellent testimony on the challenges that these employers face. In fact, the member from Cape Breton-Canso was a member of the committee during the study and participated in the hearings where businesses communicated precisely the ways in which the temporary foreign worker program is helping them address these challenges. I raise this because the motion today proposes to set up a special committee to examine an issue that the Human Resources Committee is already empowered to study and has already heard the concerns of Canadian businesses and workers alike about growing skills mismatch. This study, as well as other pre-budget consultations, was part of the reason why we focused so heavily on skills and training in the recent budget. Through Economic Action Plan 2013, we're taking a multifaceted approach to addressing labour market shortages and mismatches. To start with, Economic Action Plan 2013 invests significantly in skills and training to ensure that all Canadian workers, especially those currently sitting on the sidelines, are qualified to play an active part in Canada's economic growth. We're also increasing support to groups that are currently underrepresented in the job market. These include youth, Canadians with disabilities, Aboriginals, and newcomers to Canada. We want to ensure that every Canadian can find a place in the job market because Canadian employers need every last one of them. Most notably, Budget 2013 includes a new Canada Jobs Grant that will provide up to 130,000 Canadians a year with $15,000 to retrain, $5,000 of which will come from the federal government. Provinces and employers will also be expected to match that contribution. As the Minister of Finance said, for the first time, the Canada Job Grant will take the skills training choices out of the hands of government and put them where they belong, in the hands of job creators and Canadians who want to work. Most importantly, the new grant should lead to one essential thing for unemployed or underemployed Canadians: a new or better job. We are continuing to invest in reducing barriers to accreditation for apprentices. We will also reform procurement practices to encourage contractors to employ apprentices on federal construction and maintenance projects. Lastly, to make maximum use of the education and talents of recent graduates, we will invest $70 million over 3 years to support 5,000 more paid internships for recent post-secondary graduates. However, we recognize that in some parts of the country there are skills and labour that are needed that cannot be found by local businesses. This is very true in my riding, Mr. Speaker. And this is why temporary foreign worker programs exist, to help employers find temporary help in cases where there are absolute and acute labour shortages. Indeed, the member for Cape Breton-Canso himself acknowledges the importance of this program, as he has previously penned letters in support of bringing in temporary foreign workers. The member is joined by members of the Liberal Party, such as his colleagues from Sydney, Victoria, Winnipeg North, Randenburen St. George, and Mount Royal. Even the NDP, despite their rhetoric, have had an impressive number of members write in support of this program, including their House Leader and even one of their deputy leaders. It's quite clear that this is a program that has a broad support from across party lines, Mr. Speaker. This program allows employers to hire foreign workers on a temporary basis to fill immediate skills and labour shortages when Canadian citizens and permanent residents are not available to do the job. The program plays a critical role in meeting the short-term needs of business in dire need of workers, and I'd like to emphasize the notion of dire need. The temporary foreign worker program was designed and should be only used by employers as a last resort. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, the media reports concerning the program of late have been very concerning, and the government is investigating to ensure that it is running as it should. Our government has committed to ensuring that Canadians always have the first crack at available jobs. Canada's Economic Action Plan 2013 has emphasized that going forward, we will work with employers to ensure that temporary foreign workers are only called on when Canadians genuinely cannot fill those jobs. We will expect companies to increase their recruitment efforts to hire Canadian workers before they will be eligible to apply for temporary foreign workers. For instance, they will need to increase the length and reach of advertising about job openings, and we will restrict the identification of non-official languages as job requirements when hiring through the temporary foreign worker process. I'd like the House to take note that CIBC World Markets reported in December 2012 that 30% of businesses in this country are facing a skilled labour shortage. The Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses stated in its Business Barometer report that 34% of small and medium-sized companies identified skills shortages as a constraint on their growth. To meet these demands and to further our economic recovery, our government is increasing support for skills training and apprentices. At the same time, we are focusing on creating job opportunities for those facing greater barriers to the labour force, such as youth, Aboriginal peoples, and people with disabilities. We recognize the need to make sure that every Canadian has the opportunity to fully contribute to the Canadian economy. Our Economic Action Plan is continuing to improve Canada's economic growth and long-term prosperity. Throughout this time of economic growth, we will ensure that Canadians get the first crack at all available jobs here at home. Instead of voting against investing skills in Canadians, the opposition should support our Economic Action Plan. I would encourage all members of this House to recognize the time for talk is done and to support concrete actions to improve the temporary foreign worker program. For these reasons, Mr. Speaker, I will not be voting in favour of this motion. The work has already been done, and I thank the House for taking this time to hear me. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Question et commentaire, l'honorable député de Laurentides-des-Belles.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Bien, je suis content, je vais pouvoir poser une question à un collègue de l'Alberta. Je pense que c'est très pertinent. Avec la vente des intérêts de Nexon à la compagnie nationale chinoise, je me demande, ça va entraîner des investissements majeurs en Alberta. Et puis, on connaît la situation. Peut-être que mon collègue peut nous confirmer qu'il y a déjà une grosse pénurie de main-d'œuvre en Alberta. Est-ce que c'est la décision d'approuver cette transaction-là? Ça ne va pas créer une demande pour des dizaines de milliers de travailleurs étrangers temporaires? Merci, M. le Président.
The honourable member for Wetaskiwin.
Well, I thank the member for the question. It doesn't matter if it's Nexon or any particular employer, and it doesn't matter if it's in the energy sector. What the NDP fails to understand in Alberta is an economic engine. It's remained, I believe, the only province throughout the economic downturn that we had in Canada, and is continuing to grow. In my riding, the most common sign you see is help wanted. I have employers virtually in every sector, whether it's agriculture, whether it's in the oil and gas sector, whether it's in the service sector, coming to me saying, I can't get Canadians to do this job. They go through the LMO process, the process which vets and verifies and substantiates the fact that qualified Canadians are not able to do the job, and of course, and then go and seek temporary foreign workers to help fill that particular void. So whether it's Nexon, whether it's any other oil sands company, there will be tens of thousands of new jobs created in Alberta and across this country, because the entire supply chain for the oil sands and all of the energy activity that happens in Alberta is shared across this country. as are all of the economic benefits. So yes, we're going to need skilled workers. But I'd like to just highlight to my honourable colleague, it's not just the folks that have welding certificates. It's not just the folks who are engineers or technologists. For every one of those jobs that's created, there is an unskilled or semi-skilled job created in the service industry, whether it's serving coffee, cleaning a hotel, or doing any of those other kinds of jobs, that there aren't enough people in Alberta to currently fill those jobs.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. My question for the member is, I'm surely to goodness the member would recognize that we have 338,000 plus temporary foreign workers. That is a record high. Yet just last year, the government pushed a delete button on immigration for the skilled workers class and deleted literally 300,000 plus skilled workers from abroad. Now, there seems to be a contradiction in policy, in government policy. One is they play up temporary workers, yet, Mr. Speaker, they shun away or they hit the delete button on the skilled workers abroad that are trying to immigrate to our country. My question to the member is, does he believe that individuals that are good enough to work in Canada should also be good enough to ultimately land in Canada, become permanent residents in Canada, if they meet certain criteria?
The Honourable Member for Wetaskiwin.
Well, the honourable member should know that the backlog created through years and years of neglect by the previous Liberal government, there was no other way to deal with that particular issue. The absolute hypocrisy of that member and his party is unbelievable. In fact, I'm shocked that we have this motion today brought forward by a Liberal. Minor consequential amendments to the employment insurance program to encourage Canadians to get a job brought frustration and yelping and whining from the other side. 45-day work year proposed by the NDP, and now all of a sudden they're wondering why we need temporary foreign workers in Canada. It's a ridiculous juxtaposition. It's hypocrisy at its highest.
Order. Resume.